Hi everyone, and welcome again to my audiovisual channel. I am Gabriela Handal, a draftsman and the host of this show, A Conversation About Art. During each episode, I look for the meaning of art and beauty through conversations with colleagues in different artistic fields. Today, I bring you episode 52, and I will have this conversation with artist Hope Buzzelli. If you'd like to support my channel, liking, leaving a comment, and sharing this video is incredibly helpful, and so is subscribing. These three are immediate and have no additional cost to you. If you'd like to support my channel with money, you can do so by purchasing my drawings directly from my website, from the Contemporary Figurative Art Online Gallery, where I have a selection of drawings, buying things I make on eBay, buying prints of my drawings, or leaving me a tip. These are all quite helpful in keeping this podcast and my artistic work going. The links for all of them are in the show notes. Thank you very much for watching and or listening, and enjoy the episode. All right, Hope Buzzelli, welcome to my podcast, A Conversation About Art. You are episode 52. Please tell our listeners and viewers who you are and what you do.
Okay, hello, I'm Hope. I am in my last and final year at the New York Academy of Art. I've been studying painting there and anatomy. It's been wonderful. So kind of shortly closing up on that chapter. So it's been great, but also excited to move on to more things. I was originally born in New Jersey, kind of grew up New Jersey, New York. I've always been very, very interested in anatomy, specifically just the medical industry itself. I first wanted to go into nursing and that field, and then kind of totally did a 180 switch and was like, no, I want to be an artist, but I still want to continue studying that same thing. So I've been taking classes in anatomy. I've done a lot of dissection courses as well, and it's been fantastic for my practice. And yeah, just been continuing on this journey. It's been fun.
Okay, that sounds great. So then have you taken Michael's Advanced Artistic Anatomy in Philadelphia? Yes.
Yes, that is the exact course that I was referring to, yeah.
Yeah, that course is awesome. Yeah, it's really quite great. How, this is arguably not related, but how is the transportation to Philadelphia coordinated? How do you do that?
So for the first couple weeks, I was taking a bus, and then there's the Drexel shuttle where you get a little student ID from Drexel, and you can take the shuttle to the college, or it's outside the Drexel campus. And then kind of as the semester went on, a bunch of students would carpool together. So one person would rent a car in New York. I think we got on like 96th Street, and then we all kind of hop in and drive
96th
over.
Street in Bay Ridge?
In Manhattan.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, on the Upper West Side.
So then you have to get yourself there. It's the way that you get there is up to you, basically. Then.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, thank you for indulging my curiosity. Yeah. because when I took the class, it wasn't part of the Academy's curriculum. It was just like on the side, and I think Michael was still living in Philadelphia too. So then we would meet over there, and we would take a bus in the Port Authority bus terminal, like at I don't know 6:30, 7 in the morning. Anyway, okay, yes.
Yeah, the same exact thing. Those first couple of weeks, it's a lot, but it's, as you know, it's worth it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worth it. And I mean, I think traveling is interesting, and I kind of like, I don't know, just experiencing the in between that is being in a bus station, for example, and just waiting there, and then anyway, I mean, I'm kind of drifting a bit too much there. Okay, so I'm curious about this interest of yours in medicine and interest in art, in fine art, and how you did start studying nursing. You did get started on that.
So not entirely. In high school, when we were all deciding on, where we wanted to go to college and what we wanted to pursue, originally I had been looking at schools for nursing. I had taken different anatomy and biology courses at my high school. And then it was kind of just, I wouldn't say a last minute thing, but I had about a good 2 months to just sit and think about what I really wanted to do. And ultimately I was like, I just want to go for art. I just want to see what can happen. I was like, if it doesn't work out, can always go back to nursing later or do both. But yeah, I don't know. I always found the human body to be so interesting. And I really got into art originally because so I love Leonardo da Vinci and his studies. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of art students and artists go through that at first when they're like, oh my God, he's the coolest guy ever. Originally, I was getting into it more for his medical illustrations and dissections and trying to figure out the body in a very mechanical sense. And then from there, I was like, this is so beautiful. And then, you know, I tried drawing it, and then like one thing led to another. And I was like, I just want to keep doing this.
Okay. Okay, so then that answers what would have been the next question of why you kind of gravitated towards the artistic side. Okay. But have you considered, not that I'm telling you what to do, I'm just curious if you've thought about like either scientific illustration or medical illustration?
I did for a little bit as well too. When talking to my parents, because like my whole life I was like, I want to go to med school or I want to go into nursing. And then the very radical change of, no, I want to go to art school.
Yeah.
Kind of the leading way in is like, well, I could go into medical illustration and stepping points. But I mean, absolutely, I would not be opposed to it whatsoever. I know at the Academy, I believe it's Roberto Asti was in medical illustration for a while. Yeah,
for a good while, it was like 2 decades or something that he was doing that professionally.
Wow, that's amazing. I know I have all of his books. I haven't had him for class yet, but you know,
yeah, it's probably because you're a painting major. If you're a drawing major, cast drawing is mandatory for drawing majors. So like maybe you could take that as an elective or something, and then you work with him. You'd have a class with him. Yeah, because you have another semester, right? Because it will be in May that you graduate. Yeah, so like you get 2 electives per semester in the second year. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, maybe, I don't know. Okay, yes. Okay, so then what is it that okay, so wait, so then you feel more or less the same about artistic anatomy, like in the fine art sense, versus if you were going to do it in the scientific or medical illustration? Do you view them as similar? Do you think that you could go either way?
I believe so. I think in how I'm approaching it right now, it is more of geared towards fine art, or more of, it's not as informational. I do want my art to have a similar aesthetic and a similar feeling where it could look like it is very informative and very organized and almost used as a teaching aid, just because I really gravitate towards that look and how it's presented. I do think they are different worlds just because they have different goals overall. Like one is meant to say like, okay, like it's very educational, it's very clean cut. And although like I think it's really beautiful to look at, it might not want to be in a museum or hung up on somebody's wall above their couch. Or some people, they like that. Personally, I like that. That's what I have.
Yeah, yeah, same. It's like these posters that are blurred out here are like medical. You'll find them in a doctor's office.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense in terms of differentiating them from each other. Like the informational aspect makes a lot of sense because indeed, you know, often not only do you have the drawing or painting itself of the whatever, you know, like the muscular system or the skeleton or a bone or something with like the lines and then like the pointer lines and then what the area is called or whatever it is. And tell me what you think about this also in the sense, because you also said clean cut, and I was thinking of the term like illustrative, in that, and you know, maybe, and not like in a negative way, because sometimes I feel like it's used as a negative thing when you're talking about fine art, like, oh, it's illustrative, as if it was like some kind of a negative thing. But maybe it's just a descriptive thing, not necessarily a negative thing. But when I think of like an illustration, I think of something that is kind of Not exactly cartoon-like, but maybe like when you look at a comic book where the lines are very crisp, and the colors are, like specifically demarcated within these crisp lines, and it's like orderly compared to like what is otherwise fine art. So that's a really good differentiation. But then what do you want to talk about in the fine art? Well, tell me what you think about that. And then tell me what is it that you want to talk about in the fine art field. What do you want to talk about regarding the body in the fine art field that you think you wouldn't be able to talk about in a medical illustration type situation?
Gotcha. Okay. So I would definitely say for your first question, when it's more of an illustrative, in a sense, way where everything is clean cut, I feel like it's supposed to be read very quickly, and it's supposed to give you as much information as you can handle in that amount of time. Just very clear, very direct. It's kind of just like, okay, here are the facts. And I mean, you've seen the cadavers before. They definitely don't look like the posters and images that.
It's not crisp or clear.
Not at all. It's kind of like this chaotic, abstract beauty, but also everything's kind of gray and muted browns. So I do find it very fascinating how when like color is added and all these like, clean, perfect lines and how everything gets idealized in a sense. I think that is very important for teaching and just being able to break everything down and understand it, especially in like a very like quick kind of timely manner. And then with fine art, I feel like that goes more into the realm of almost like feeling and like emotional evoking, like you kind of want to sit with it for a while. Feelings be processed really fast, where it's like you kind of have to digest it a little bit more and kind of give it more time. So both just go and they both definitely are very important in their own ways, but they just don't have the same goal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful and interesting. Especially what you were saying just now about medical illustration, about how it's supposed to be, because it's it's instructional material. So it's supposed to be, like you were saying, clear and straightforward and easy to read quickly and easy to find things quickly. And it's not an exact representation of what it represents because it's like cleaned out in quotes. Because I remember in the class with Michael, I was like, what do I do with all this stringy shit? Because it's like, like the muscles. Yeah, because like the musculature, if the cadaver gets dry, it doesn't get wet often enough, it doesn't get moisturized often enough, and maybe it's not treated super well by the students because they're just learning. And so like there's like the fibers, they start like fraying, for example. That's one of the things I remember the most. But then because the imagery in the medical illustration is simplified, then there's just a ton of information that is obviously fleshed out for the sake of simplification so that one can understand, at least in part, the illustration. And yeah, and that reminds me of something that I was talking about with my previous guest about how that simplification is indeed a way of learning about stuff, because it's like, that's like also how we learn how to draw sometimes. They're like, yeah, draw simplified shapes, start with a box, and then I don't know if you had Randy MacGyver, but he's like, yeah, an egg and a stick of butter, to start putting something on the paper so that then you can start shaping it into what it is. And yeah, so it's definitely a passageway or a gateway to then get to the more complicated information, and to then, one polishes the observational skills, and then you're able to draw the stringy shit, right? No problem. No. You don't get confused by it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still, there's so much about the anatomy and the body that I feel like that's a lifelong dedication and stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You have to keep freshening up on. But yeah, if somebody just said, placed a cadaver in front of me and it's like, okay, figure it out. It's just, there's so much going on and it's beautiful. But yeah, in like little steps, little bits. I know I need the egg and the butter to be able to figure out how to break everything down in just like little increments.
Have you had Randy McIver?
Not yet, no. I haven't had him. He's a sculpting teacher.
No,
Right.
I don't think he has anything to do with the sculpture department, although he should because he's fucking amazing at it. But no, he's more like an anatomy. He teaches Eckershey.
Oh, wow. I had
And
Cynthia early for Eckershey. She was
yeah,
awesome. Well, but I didn't have Randy.
okay, yeah, no, it's just that yeah, Randy's really cool, and he's kind of an amazing teacher because he like makes himself all of his teaching stuff. Like all the drawings, all the sculptures that he takes into class, he makes them and he casts them in what do you call it, in the white stuff, plaster. He does all of it. He's amazing. Anyway, okay. All right. And so I'd like it if you went a little bit more into the fine art side of I mean not artistic anatomy strictly, because then what do you think, actually, let me ask you about this. What do you think is the difference between artistic anatomy and, or what is the difference in your opinion between artistic anatomy and medical illustration?
I almost feel like that's kind of like the little bridge between medical illustration and like this fine art kind of world that we're talking about. That's a good question. Honestly, I've never thought of that before, but yeah, it's just like the next stepping point over. I feel like with artistic anatomy, it is more about using the body in its natural form to enhance the artwork, to be able to use different muscles to kind of show tension in some points and start to bring out this kind of emotional feeling, but using anatomy specifically to do that. I believe artistic anatomy is definitely a tool, or not only a tool, but it's just like another technicality that helps with being able to create a painting or a drawing or a piece of work that is able to further speak to someone.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like make it more believable.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So then, yes, I would like it if you went a little bit more into what is it that you personally are trying to explore in the fine art, because there's a lot of overlap between like really all of these things. Even, I mean, and it's not just the body, it's not just the body. There's for sure other stuff. But for you personally, what is it that you want to explore and talk about in your work regarding the body and anatomy?
So originally, when first coming to the academy, it wasn't the first time that I worked with live models, but it definitely had been the most amount of time that I've worked with like live models in person. This was coming like right out of pandemic. Mm-hmm. And it was just so incredible to be able to see so much detail and see like every turn of the skin and every
pore
expression. Yeah. And it was all just there. And I remember being like, it's just gorgeous. Like you just want to capture every single detail. Mm-hmm. And then going into the summer, because I had a summer studio there, I again wanted to paint the figure and like really learn how to capture flesh. And I didn't really have enough money to pay for models all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I just started getting like large pieces of meat from the grocery store. Skin intact. I think it was like a pork shoulder. And then just sitting there and like trying to get flesh down, trying to figure out. And it's really uncanny how similar like just a person is to a piece of meat. And at the end of the day, like we are all pieces of meat. It's just like a fleshy vessel that we're all kind of stuck in. So it's kind of going through that for a while. And it was kind of just like a domino effect of one thing leading to another. And then I started taking Michael's dissection class, and that was incredible. It was, it's like nothing that you've ever seen before. And just, I wanted to start to learn how the body works almost in a mechanical sense, and being able to figure out muscle structures and like how everything twists and turns and coils into itself. And it's just designed so perfectly. Mm-hmm. And continuing on with that, I had wanted to start creating my own kind of creatures or specimens in a sense. Where now it's kind of, I had this like little bank of knowledge built up on how forms worked and structure, and then just kind of starting to make my own little creatures. So with that, in this past semester at school, for my thesis, I had been working on these imaginary drawings of specimens that I'd created. And sorry, there's a whole bunch of deer running by right now.
That's awesome.
In Jersey, yeah. So it's just like, oh my God, they're all running by. Sorry. But yeah, so I've been looking a lot at medical history from the late 19th century, but also looking a lot at Darwin's Origin of Species, how that one particular book kind of like created a chain reaction of all these different movements, specifically in medical history, and kind of going to where we are today with that. And so I was creating these specimens being influenced by if I had gone on a journey or adventure similar to Darwin and found all these new animals, and almost documenting them, dissecting them, trying to figure out how their bodies worked, like their different eating habits, and just kind of creating this imaginary world. So really going into the fantasy of what could be. And I'm still working through it and trying to figure it out. But it's been so much fun so far, and trying to do that. Now I'm trying to tie in parts of specifically women's medical history to these drawings and these creatures that I've been creating. I think I want to make almost like an allegory for real historical events through this like narrative that I've created with these imaginary creatures.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm at.
What is the narrative?
So it's right now I have 3 like little monsters and creatures, and they're in all different stages of kind of like evolution in a sense. And each creature depends on one of the other creatures as like a source of food. And so if one of them, like I have a creature that looks like a horse, and it gets eaten by this like 2-tailed possum-y mouse person, animal, and then that creature gets eaten by this other weird plant thing that I have. And so it's kind of just this ongoing cycle where they all need each other and they all depend on each other, but at the same time they're all being hunted by each other. And it's just this ongoing cycle, and if anything becomes unbalanced, the entire ecosystem will just completely be destroyed. So that's not too much about medical history. That's just kind of a mini narrative that I've been playing with and kind of going back and forth with. But I think going forward, I want to really look at like different events and be able to create allegories with them, with my creatures.
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Buzzelli, what is art in your opinion?
I feel like almost everything is art in some degree. I don't know. I think it breaks down to it's a form of language. It's a way of expressing. I don't want to say something that can't be put into words because that's not right, but it's like a language that is able to, I don't know, it's like a connection between people, or it's explaining. I'm sorry, my mind's like 4 different places right now. But I don't know, art is like, it's just in everything, it's everywhere.
why do you think it's in everything, or that art, what was the specific thing you said at first? But why do you think it's in everything? Or that it, did you say that it can be anything?
I don't know if it can be anything. Maybe if it was argued well enough, it could be anything. But I think it's just a form of language, and it's just part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really a way to communicate with somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Do you think that this, I mean, do you think that art still has the capability to be a tool for communication in the current time where everyone's visual language is, all right, I want to tell you why I'm hesitating, okay? Because I want to say that it's divided, but I don't think that's accurate. I think the case is that because of the way that information disseminates now, in the sense that if you are a person with a smart device, with a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop, you can see work, you can see art from anywhere, not just in the present, but also the past, also from anywhere. Whereas before, if you think about like the Renaissance, for example, the people who saw the work were limited to a part of Europe, not even all of Europe, a part of Europe. So then it's easier for the visual language to be homogenic in a smaller area. Because it's like they didn't have to deal with people in South America seeing their work, for example. So I mean, does that make sense? Because the way that information gets distributed, or the way that a viewer looks for information is not the same. So it's not only can it reach farther now, it is also way faster now. Because it's like before, I don't know how long it would have taken to like get a printed book out, for example. And now it's like you can do it yourself with a self-publishing ebook thing, and it's like if you really wanted to, you have a published book in a year, meaning, like including writing it and editing it, and then you find your e-publishing thing, and then it's published, and it's like maybe even 6 months, who knows? Anyway, the thing is that the speed at which it happens, I mean, that's just an example, but the speed at which information is disseminated also is very, very vastly different than it was in the past. So how do you think this art as communication, or how do you think the communicative aspect of art, what role can that even play now? It's like, I mean, I'm sure that there's very many things in common between all of the people. There's plenty of things that are cross-cultural. I cannot think of one, except maybe like something like death, like skulls, for example, maybe. But otherwise, it's like, like if you, for example, if you yourself with the work that the art that you're working on, for example, if you wanted as many people as possible to understand that, it's like how what do you think about, I mean, I don't know if you care about that stuff, but like we're talking about it and like musing about it, so like the role of art as communication, like what do you think about that?
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think that everything is so accessible today, and it's just like instant on demand. You're just, we could go on our phones right now, and in like 30 seconds, you could go from so many different subjects, crossing back and forth. I think it does, we get kind of jaded in a sense, or at least I do, where it's like, you're constantly processing information, you're constantly taking in visual images all the times between advertisements, television, just, if you want to get a cookie, whatever the packaging on that is, and you're just constantly digesting stuff all the time. And especially living in New York, there's always everything happening. And it is very different from when you walk into a museum and you just see a couple pieces and like that's it. And being able to spend time with the physical object in person is a very different reaction than kind of seeing it on 2 inches by however many inches on your phone and looking through it really quickly. And it's true, you can get basically any piece of art from anywhere in the world and just being able to look it up, Google it. Mm-hmm. I think there is a little bit of value that's taken away from the work in a sense, or at least an initial reaction, unless you're actively looking for it and searching for it. And you're saying like, I really want to see this piece, and you're taking the time to really look at it and spend time with it. But it's true, like if we went back to Europe, like 400 years ago, it's just those couple of pieces of art that are around you. And that's just also depending on like your class status. And like if you can go to museums, what you can see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that limits the pool of people that see the work even more.
Yes, yeah. So audience is definitely audience has changed drastically. Mm-hmm. I think you are able to distribute your work mm-hmm. much more easily now, but everything is just so fast paced where it's like, mm-hmm. there's always going to be the next thing kind of coming.
Yeah. Actually, let me add another thing, because I don't think I actually changed my mind on a thing about the pool of people that see the work, because I'm not sure that's entirely true. Because, and actually that is, it's an argument in favor of the homogeneous. I'm thinking of the Bjork album. That's called homogeneous. I think it's not a word. I think it's homogeneous. Homogeneous visual language, because paintings and imagery were used to tell illiterate people about Bible stories. So like, I don't think class would have been an issue, actually. And it's like, I mean, now that we're musing about it, and now that I remember that, I think in Wade's class or something, I think I heard it at some point during art history, that indeed the images in paintings were used to tell illiterate people about Bible stories. So if they're illiterate, obviously they're not high class, and they don't quote unquote appreciate the work the same way. And it's like, commonly, I think, before postmodernism and this stuff, art was supposed to, or at least like in the Salon in France, the work was supposed to have like a positive moral outcome story, and it was supposed to like edify the viewer. So then it's like they're still working on that homogeneous visual language to try to tell the viewer, like, there's a lesson here to be learned, and do this, don't do that, do this because it'll be good, and don't do that because it'll be bad. So it's like, again, using the homogeneous visual language to be able to talk to people that can't read. So then I think perhaps that kind of adds to the argument of this visual language, of visual language in a way that I don't think we can experience it anymore. Using visual language in a way that I don't think we can anymore.
Yeah, I think we would be experiencing it very differently mm-hmm. overall. And I think what I was referring to before with like different classes or different sets of people, like the church had very specific artwork made, mm-hmm. or at least in Europe, a lot of the reason why there was so much art is because the church sponsored it. Yeah. Exactly. And that's why there's so many paintings of, saints in the Roman Catholic Church. But then going to the Medici family would have private art collections, and it wasn't exactly work that would be allowed to be displayed to the public. It was very mm-hmm. private.
Okay.
They could view it. And I want to say La Primavera by Botticelli was one of them. I know a lot of his works were very private at that time, and then it was like only later it kind of came out to the public. But it is definitely a language, and especially now, I think one of the larger kind of areas of work that's like really about communication is like different types of political work. Like it is a message, and it is supposed to be very strong, and it's kind of supposed to get you fired up mm-hmm. as well. I think there's a lot of really wonderful like political pieces that are able to communicate that. And it's like, for at least in art today, maybe that's the only, or one of the only examples that I can think of, like how we would experience something similar.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, it's just there's two totally different worlds, going from people that needed artwork to be able to understand biblical stories to where we are today.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember if I let you talk about why art isn't everything. So would you mind going into that again, please?
No, absolutely. I feel like it's just so ingrained into or a lot of aspects of our life. At least now with social media, especially, everything is about, or it seems to be that everything is a very visual kind of algorithm, and it's meant to kind of keep people hooked and using different aesthetics. But right now I have my laptop on top of this box, and it has like all these different kind of snacks on it, and I'm looking at it, and just like the graphic design that goes into it, there's different little bits of language that go into it, or even just like the breakdown of colors and how they're supposed to make you feel, and how people use red to get you to want something, or it's like yellow to make you feel hungrier. And in some ways, I feel like art is almost weaponized against people, in order to, in advertising, it's done all the time to get somebody to buy something, where it's like they're using different artistic kind of techniques to draw somebody in further. Even like when you're in school, you learn about notan, where it's like dark and light, and like what patterns people gravitate towards, and like what's going to catch somebody's eye.
What did you call that? Notan?
Or notan? I know Dan Thompson talks about it a lot.
How do you, is note?
Let's see.
Notan?
Notan? Notan?
Oh, okay. I have never heard that in my life. Okay, go on, sorry.
It's interesting. It's almost like similar to chiaroscuro, like light and dark, but it's just what's the most kind of graphic pattern or shape that you're able to come up with just white and black. And so at least I've been told, if there's like good notan in a piece, you'll be able to spot it like all the way at the very end of a gallery or a museum or a room, and still be interested in it, because we just kind of the organization of light and dark. But yeah, I feel like there's such a craftsmanship to every single part of the world. Like I always like to sit and think like, oh, like that's an interesting door over there. Like how on earth would I make that door if I had to? And I'm thinking about like how it would be sculpted, how something would be carved, and just kind of like breaking everything down. And it's like, I feel like that would be a sculpture, and it would be an art form, or even music. And just like, I don't know much about music, but it does have that very similar effect on someone, where you just can't describe why you feel a certain way, but it just, something happens to you. And it can happen to you while you're looking at a painting, or while you're looking at a performance as well. Or I would totally justify movies and films as works of art. It's this visual experience that just kind of like draws you in, and you can't help but look. And so maybe it's because I live in New York and there's always like a lot happening all the time. But I just find it in everything, everywhere. Right? Maybe I would change my statement to, it is a language as well, but art is just anything that can be created, or kind of the transferring into something else.
So then,
though.
what? Sorry.
I was saying, like, I'm not sure if that makes sense though. I'm still trying to figure out what art even means for me.
Oh no, I'm not. Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm not. I mean, I'm like 52 episodes deep into this thing, and I still don't. I mean, I have like a handful of things in common that have come up maybe in a couple of episodes, but there's no consistency. I mean, no consistency isn't right. Like there isn't. It's not really exactly solidifying or anything. Um, and yeah, I mean that's kind of why it's kind of frustrating for me. And I mean, I don't know if you feel this way, but you know, I grew up liking to draw and paint
Mhm.
both, and then I just focused on drawing. But then seeing other things like performance and installation and other things that were barely even performance or installation, that were barely just an image, that were barely made by a person, called art and selling for thousands and thousands and millions of dollars. And it's like, it's like I can't imagine that feeling the same as me sitting with a drawing for an undetermined amount of time and
Mhm.
kind of it like the back and forth that there is between, so like I'm going like this because if I have the drawing in front of me, it's like the back and forth between me and the drawing.
Mhm.
I can't imagine that being similar in any capacity to any of like the whatever postmodern type thing. It's like, yeah, anything can be art. I just, if I say this picture frame is art, then it's art, and I'm an artist and I'm going to sell it for $5,000 at MoMA or something. It's like that
Mhm.
doesn't make any sense to me. But then I grew
Mhm.
up kind of feeling rather not having to, feeling like I had to tolerate it, and feeling like my work had to, for whatever reason, for whatever unexplained reason, contend with that kind of stuff. And so more recently, I kind of want to wash off the resentment and the sarcasm that I feel towards that, and kind of find find some kind of an anchor about what art is, or yeah, I mean, what is it? Because
Mhm.
even though what I do, I think what I do is art, and
Oh,
I think what you do is art. I don't know what it is exactly, because it's a drawing, okay, but it isn't just a drawing, is it? Because if it so then somewhere in there is the line between a drawing that has been involved and done with care, it has a lot of thought into it, and I'm trying to make the thing, trying to, like a studious, beautiful thing, versus a scribble and a post-it note. It's like it's not the same. So then what exactly is the difference? I'm not sure, but I think there is a difference in there somewhere. So,
I think it's also the intent behind it
mhm.
as well. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
because I think I had struggled with that too quite a bit because it's like, wanting to perfect your craft and technique, and you spend hours and years dedicating to being able to make something that's like physically here look like something on your paper. Um, I guess at the end of the day, like it is just ink and graphite on a surface where it's like, but it's also kind of freeing to know that as well, because it's like it can mean so much, and it's like whatever value that you put into it. But it's like, because I used to feel very like pressured and scared, or not pressured and scared, but when drawing something, be like, oh my god, it's not turning out the way it should, and like it totally affects you, and
Mm-hmm.
when you take it to heart, then being like, oh, like this is just a piece of paper, like this
Sure.
is just a tree, like you can do it again, you can do it over and in
Mm-hmm.
like all these different ways. But I agree, it's really hard to figure out what is the line between art and what's not. um yeah, I do, when you were speaking, I did think of a movie that I think you would find interesting, but also could possibly anger you because it angered me. And it's
Uh-huh.
called The Price of Everything.
The price of everything?
Yes. And
Okay.
it talks about So it's like all like really big artists, like Jeff Koons and his
Of
workshop.
course you would be there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like Art Basel, Miami, and it basically goes into the capitalism behind a very specific art market. And you just kind of sit there watching this movie and you're like, why on earth did I become an artist? This looks horrible. But like it starts to make you question why you wanted to be an artist and why you make art. And for me, like at least when I was watching that, I had found like, okay, I don't want my art to end up like that. Like that's not why I got into art. Like I didn't want it to be this big commodified thing, and I don't think I'll get there anyways. But I really did it because I wanted to connect with people. And I'm not always great with words and expressing myself, but like I can draw it out and I can paint it out, and it makes so much more sense. And being able to share that with somebody, like that's where I was like, I have to keep doing this. But yeah, so definitely check out that movie if you want to get annoyed.
I think I might not, especially if Jeff Koons and Damien Hirst or whatever this ilk of people are there. I probably won't because I'm like deliberately trying to avoid shit that gets me riled up.
Okay,
It's
so
like,
maybe then don't watch that. Definitely add that on a don't
yeah,
watch.
yeah, no, I just, it's like I stopped drinking coffee because, not that long ago, but a little while ago, because I don't need its stimulus, you know, it's like, you know, because I'm trying to make my sleep also be better because I keep waking up at night and then going to sleep again, but it's like, I thought it might be the coffee. Anyway, the thing is that I don't need more, you know, spice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I kind of feel like, I mean, I figure that in the movie also they talked about how that's like a capitalist sort of thing, but I feel like
Oh my,
people,
yeah,
huh?
yeah.
I feel
I
like
was
when, I feel like when somebody derides capitalism, it's because it's people that don't like hard work or something, because I don't know. And at the same time, I'm not sure. I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't be honest if I didn't admit or I didn't think that I would like my work. Wait, let me word it a different way. I would be lying if I said I don't want my work to sell for thousands of dollars. I fucking do. Yes. Give me the money, you know. So it's like if I was able to get into any kind of art, wherever it is that artists are making thousands of dollars, that they get thousands even after the gallery or the fair or whatever gets their commission. It's like, yeah, I want that. Like, I don't care. Like, it's like what I don't like is that, you know, Damien Hirst just makes joke work. And so does Jeff Koons. It's like, for me, that is the problem. Because it's like, it's like,
well, like there's no soul to it. Or
yeah,
at least when I look at it, I don't, you know, you don't have that feeling of like, oh, it makes you think differently. It's kind of, you just look at capitalism and you're like, wow, I can't believe this sold for that much. Or it's like, I can't believe this much money was spent on a piece of metal.
I don't know. I just feel like Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons, I feel like their work is more about them than the work. Because Jeff Koons, because they're like, oh, a rock star artist, and it's like, I want a Jeff Koons, and it's just because you want a Jeff Koons. It's like you don't want the work itself. If the name wasn't attached to it, then you'd have no interest in it.
Oh, you know? Yeah, it's totally the branding.
Yeah, so it's like buying a Louis Vuitton purse or something. So it's more about the brand itself. I don't know. I bothered a little bit to read about Damien Hirst, only the Wikipedia article, you know, like just very, very base. And he thinks that thinking of ideas is art. And it's like, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Like
because then you don't have to make anything. Because you can get away with not making anything and just being Damien Hirst standing in a room and you're making, I don't know. It's like, no, that's not good enough for me at all. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I can. I mean, I think so much of art is like it happens in your head, and then
sure,
like the physical body does have to make it, and there is that interaction. Like when you were talking about before, like you are with that piece going back and forth, like that's such an important piece of it. And, you know, you need both for it to happen. Because I think also then on the other side of it, like if you're just not thinking at all and just kind of like, you know, doing scribbles that don't amount to anything, like where's the value in that either? So I guess it's like a, or at least how I see it, it's like you have to have both parts working together in order for it to like really create something.
Yes, sure, yeah, for sure. But then if those are like the two sides of something, and if you only have then the one side, then it's only that. Because it's like if having ideas, having ideas and thinking about the meaning of the work, of course, it's part of a piece of work, but it still needs. It's like the physical aspect of it is its counterpart, and then it cannot be art unless both are present. Because then if you only have your ideas, then it's like, all right, nobody can see that, it's in your head, and then that's it. Right. Or something, you know what I mean? Because I mean, I definitely agree that, because that's exactly what I'm doing when I'm drawing the work. I'm thinking about the drawing and what I want to do to the drawing and why I like it so much. I'm like, oh, this is so pretty, and like kind of putting this intent into it, like you were saying earlier. But then it's like, if I'm just sitting here, I don't have anything in front of me, and I'm just like thinking about, I would love to make this super pretty thing. And then, you know, like there's no physical object to catch that, you know, and to kind of be filled with that. You know what I mean? Okay. All right. What is beauty in your opinion?
Sometimes I feel like beauty is a feeling, or it's like I feel like beauty is a measurement in a sense, almost like how hot and cold is a measurement. Or I've heard that there's no technically such thing as cold, it's just warm and less warm.
Oh, interesting.
But I almost see beauty in a similar regard to that, where it's like a comparative, almost a comparative idea in some ways. It's like I feel like in like an airtight closed bubble, if like there was just a vastness of nothing, like beauty couldn't exist. It's like you have to have multiple different, I don't want to say objects, but it's almost like a scale in a sense. Like you can't have something that's beautiful without having something that is not. And I don't mean to say that about like a person or like really like looking at something either. Like it can even just be an experience and something that you're going through. Like I think one of the best, not best examples, but the one that I'm thinking of right now is like if you're grieving the loss of a loved one or like the loss of something, and then somebody else comes and kind of helps you through that. Like that in itself is like a very beautiful moment. It's like a very beautiful experience, but it couldn't happen without something that was sadder and like less fortunate. So it's like I like to think of beauty in those terms. But as far as like visual beauty, or kind of like what could be almost like scientifically broken down, like there are certain aesthetics that people just gravitate towards. They'll be under like a aesthetic arrest. I've heard the term used before, where it's you'll sometimes see some kind of an object, a painting, and it's almost like your body doesn't know what to do but just look at it and take it in. And I feel like we'll get kind of like little micro doses of that with art that we like, in a way where you'll see something and you'll be like, I don't know why I can't stop looking at that, but it's like you just want to keep looking. And then also if you go into like the Fibonacci sequence and golden ratio, it's like mathematically what is like a beautiful pattern, or like kind of what do we gravitate towards. So I think there's certain like scientifically how to make something look beautiful, or at least by going off of patterns on what masses tend to like and what people tend to gravitate towards. Like you can see patterns throughout different things. But yeah, I find a lot with my art, like I think it's beautiful in its own sense. And like I'm not trying to say that to be cocky in any way. But it's like I just think the human body, there's so much abstract beauty that happens. And especially when you're looking at different forms and structures, like it and like the spirals that will happen on like if you're going on the muscles from the arm and like the flexors and the extensors and how they kind of like curl around the bones, like it's just really beautiful. But it's also kind of grotesque in a lot of senses too. And it's like, do I just find that beautiful because that's my own kind of
Why did you use the term grotesque?
I know that a lot of reactions that I've had to my work is because it's kind of like looking at the inside of something or looking at a dissection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, say, and people will sometimes be turned off by the viewing of the inside of the body or the viewing of muscle structures.
Mm-hmm.
Or like when I used to paint meat, it was like, okay, this is very like visceral and kind of like there's a grotesque quality to it because it's like it can be kind of messy and it does remind people of death in some ways, or it's like things that are rotting, things that are kind of like coming off of bones where it's like I feel like all those things aren't supposed to be like stereotypically pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But there is like if you take the context away from death and the idea of something rotting and something dying, like it does just look beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I kind of find with anatomy and the figure and the body, like it's just interesting to look at.
But is it grotesque to you?
To me, no.
Okay.
I don't know if it's because I've seen it so much that it doesn't really affect me anymore. I know when I was younger, like if I had seen like Roadkill or anything like that, I was very like, oh my God, like, and then I think as I started to get older and started to get more of an interest in anatomy and the human body, then it was like, okay, this is more of like, this is cool, this is interesting. Like you just kind of, then it became like an obsession of wanting to learn about it. So I didn't feel like it was grotesque anymore, but I know other people that I've talked to, they're very like, like I don't know about that. And kind of not, yeah.
Okay. It just that makes me think about some of my work as well. Before going to the academy, I used to do more fantasy art type stuff. Like legends and mythology and stuff, and
that's really cool.
Yeah, and like religious, because I think demons are cool, and like and that stuff.
Absolutely.
And so like I'm from Panama, a small country in Central America, and it's a Catholic country. I mean, I was raised Catholic as well. But then people will be like, oh my God, you're drawing demons, you're just dark. Are you like a goth and stuff? And I mean, even when I got here, I got some, not the exact same wording or anything, but the term like dark, quote unquote, was also used. And I never to this day have thought of the work as dark. The work that I did then, I don't think about it dark now. I don't think as any of my work as dark in any, like even if people, I don't know, I just, the term never occurred to me. Even when other people were using it to describe my work. And I think it might have something to do, I was thinking that it might have something to do about something like what we were saying earlier about the visual language. But I don't know, I also think that, because I remember that when people okay, so I had a small show in Panama in some place. It wasn't, I mean, I rented a space to be able to show the work. And I had like a guest book, and somebody was like, you should paint the happier things in life or something super stupid like that. And I got so fucking angry because
that page.
yeah, because it's like, so it made me so angry because it's like, why is that view the only thing you can see? So it's like really frustrating to me that a person can't seem to find anything else or try to think of something else. So I was, I had an Instagram live thing with an art teacher, and we were talking about visual language. And so, and one of the questions that we got was like, how do I make work that is consistent, that where everyone will be able to see the same thing? And it's like, that's a problem, because it's like, if you draw a boob, okay, somebody will be like, oh my God, that's porn. But then another person will be like, oh my God, that's life, because breasts have breast milk, and when babies are born, that's what feeds them. So then there's like all of these, that's for sure at least two things that a person can see when looking at looking at a woman's breast. So I guess I just get frustrated when other people look at what they are made of, because like what you were saying, we are made of meat. Like that's one of the things that we're made of. We're made of muscle fibers, and we're made of fat, and we're made of skin, among many other things. And to me, I'm ranting because I'm like annoyed at people that told you that your work is grotesque. So I'm ranting at them, okay? Because it's like, that is what you're made of. And so like, to me, that looks like denial of the body. And I have a big problem with that, because in my opinion, this torrid relationship that we have with our bodies is the reason for which we have so many fucking problems today. It's just spiraled out of control in so many aspects. I don't know. That just like annoys me, and it kind of, and I don't know. I guess I feel as though maybe you're using the term to describe your work yourself, maybe as like maybe you feel like a twinge of guilt because you like the work, and those other people are like, oh no, it's grotesque because it's death. And it's like, I don't know. I don't want you to.
No, and I really appreciate that. I think, everybody's had such a different experience in life because everybody lives totally different lives.
Yeah.
We can't control how people view things and see it. And I've definitely learned that with my work, like certain things that I'll find really fascinating. I'm like, oh, like this is just so cool, and it's pretty, and it's like kind of fun. And some people have a completely opposite reaction to it. And I'm always like, oh, okay, like we grew up really differently, but like, that's kind of cool. I feel like that's what makes art fun, is like you're getting different perspective and you're getting different ideas. But oh my God, totally. And who you surround yourself with especially is gonna either, support the work that you're doing, or you're gonna get turned away from it. So actually, after I get my master's this spring, I'm going into tattooing, and I'm doing a tattooing apprenticeship. And I'm so excited about that, because like it's still medical and it's kind of fun, but it's like interacting with people. So I'm like, there's a whole other story. Yeah. But I found in particular that community has been so receptive to my artwork. They're like, oh my God, this is great. Like, I love this and I love that. And I was like, I never thought I could sell my work like this. Or it's like, I didn't know that I would have that kind of an effect on somebody else. And like, that's been extremely fulfilling. So I think it is, especially like finding your audience, finding like who you want to see the work. But also at the end of the day, I always have to check in with myself and be like, okay, if I was the only person to exist, and this is a very narcissistic view, but it helps with art, so it's fine. But if I was the only person to exist on the planet, and it's like I had all the food that I wanted, like never get sick, like everything was taken care of, like what kind of art would I be making? Because if it's only for me, and if it's only supposed to be self-satisfying, then it's like, okay, try that for a little bit. And I know not everybody is in a position where they can. But I think especially for students and people that are starting out, if you focus on just making work for yourself, like that's what you're truly going to be passionate about. And like that passion, that excitement, that's going to show. And other people are going to kind of grab onto that. So I don't know. It's been interesting. But yeah, we should definitely keep making grotesque, quote unquote,
dark
work, goth work. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I like that a lot as a closure to the episode, because we have crossed the hour mark here, so I think this is a good place to start closing it out. Hope, please tell our viewers and listeners what you're up to lately, and I guess you already talked a little bit about that, but if you want to talk more about it, or what you're up to lately, where your work can be found, anything you want to add?
Yes, I do have a lot of my work stuff on my Instagram right now. I'm in the process of making a website. It's just Hope Buzzelli Art. If anybody in the next 2 to 3 years is looking for a tattoo, I will be at Hidden Rose NYC.
You even have a place already. Cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. But and then I think at New York Academy of Art, they have a thesis show at the end of the year. So I'll be there for the next couple months. So it'll be good.
Okay, that's lovely. All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. No, thank you. You're welcome. And thank you very much for agreeing to talk to me. Thank you, Hope, for joining me. Thank you for your time, your words, and your thoughts. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Feel free to let Hope and I know what you think of this conversation in the comments. I encourage you to like this video and share it with any and all pertinent individuals, as it helps the channel, and this way more people can listen to these interviews. Finally, I invite you to subscribe to my audiovisual channel, because I have more conversations scheduled. If you want to support Hope, myself, this podcast, or all three, the links will be in the show notes. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye.